Hi folks, and welcome to another Warplan guide. Today what I'd like to be able to talk about in this particular guide is the main supply source. Every unit in the game itself needs supply to either recover strength, effectiveness, or actually upgrade. And we can see here we've set up a situation where Russia's pulled back here, and you have Germany's about to invade the USSR in Operation Barbarossa. Now, in this particular video, I just want to concentrate on main supply sources. When you're looking at a main supply source, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the supply icon on the top of the menu bar that you can see. When I go to click on that, what you're going to see is in Germany, so I'm concentrating only in Germany here. What you see is these lime green hexes. These are considered main supply sources for the Germans, the country of Germany here. So these are the ones that I have here. If you take a look at the minor country of Hungary, we have Budapest here that is a main supply source. So when I'm looking at a main supply source, I'm really looking at any urban resource with production of 10 or more and a minor capital in the home country hex that is actually owned and controlled by the country that has not yet surrendered. That's considered a main supply source. Now you'll also see a bunch of numbers that are associated with this. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit here, and I'm going to concentrate on Berlin. So going back to my drawing tool here, this is of supply level 9. What ends up happening is as the supply comes out, it comes out from rail lines. Hence why you see that all the rail lines here have a supply value of 9 out of all of it. Now those supply values are being extended by rail through all its captured territory and then back out to the units themselves. But as you notice, what ends up happening is not every unit itself is on a rail line out of all of it. So when you look at the particular units in question here, what ends up happening is this is off a rail unit, and then there's this number 8 here. So you can see the number 9 on all the rail hexes, but off the rail hexes, these numbers seem to decrease, and they seem to decrease in a certain way. Well, that's what I want to talk a little bit about this video, or inside this video. One of the nice things about this game is you can stop the video right now. You don't even have to watch it if you don't actually need to. This video is just looking at how these numbers are calculated, and the idea behind it is also how these numbers affect effectiveness, or how they impact effectiveness recovery within your units themselves, and a brief explanation of the tactics behind why it's so important to capture rail lines, because they are your stream or your lifeline here for your logistics. That is the supplies that are required for each of the units to recover its strength, its effectiveness, and also to upgrade. So that's the whole point of this video. How these numbers are generated I will explain, but again, from the point of view of a player, you just need to understand what the actual numbers mean and how they actually impact your units. All these numbers are calculated for you. This is all under the hood, so all this micromanagement is just basically all done for you. You don't have to do any counting, you don't have to do any of that sort of stuff. In this video, this is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to explain how the system actually works. So as it stands right now, when you're looking at the main supply sources, so these are the green hexes here, or the lime green hexes if you want. What I have here is, as I mentioned earlier, a situation where it looks like Russia's going to give me all of this free land here. So from the point of view of the axes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward here, and we're going to take a look at our supply lines and see how they're impacted. And I'm going to go as far as I can, recreating another front if I can. Bear with me as I move forward. I also want to take a second, and I almost forgot, at the beginning of the game, every unit started off with 100% effectiveness. They haven't moved, and every time you move, you do lose effectiveness, and so forth. So I'm going to move, and if you take a note at this, you can see a mech unit can move quite far. So again, clicking on the supply here, and this is a mech unit that I'm dealing with here, and hopefully there's no headquarters units around there because it will impact this. So when I'm looking at this, and I'm going to go in this particular direction, so if I'm moving from this hex to this hex, what ends up happening is it's going to cost me 3 operational points here. So this is a hill. So think of it this way. The way the 6, that is the supply level of the hex, is actually calculated is by the actual motorized movement, how much it costs to move a motorized unit within a hex itself. So if I'm looking at this from, this is actually a motorized unit. If I'm moving into this hex, it's going to cost me 3 ops points. It's going to cost me another op point. Well, I shouldn't say that because this looks like a mountain hex here. It looks like to move from into this hex from this point, because this hex here is doing the supply for it. It's going to cost 4 op points to move into that hex. So here's a mech unit here. You can see it costs 2 op points to actually move into that hex. Now, again, the way I'm going to explain this is, if this hex was actually the main supply source, well then this value would be 6 because it would cost 2 op points for a mech unit to move into that. Notice here it's going to cost 4 mech points to move into this spot here. So 9 minus 4 gives you the 5. So you can see it's going to take this route. It's going to cost 5 op points here. So this would end up being more than likely a 4. But since this hex here is closer to this rail hex, you've got your 4 op points here coming from this hex. So when you're looking at these, what you're really looking at are, and the way that it's explained in the manual, you can think of it as this hex here. So again, this hex here is at a supply level of 9 because it's on rail. But to get to this hex here, it will require trucks to deliver the supplies to whatever units are located there. And because I'm going through a forest area here, what will end up happening, it'll cost 2 op points. So what happens is 9 minus 2, that's how you're getting the supply level of your hex. So I wanted to do that as a sidebar so you can understand where these values are coming from. So if I take a look at another example here, what ends up happening is this supply hex is 9. A motorized unit will take 1 op point to move to this hex. It will take another op point to move to that hex. So that means a truck moving from here to here will cost 2 op points, 9 minus 7, and that's how you're getting the 7 here. And again, headquarters affects this, as you're going to find out in the port supply video. So with this in mind, that's how these values are obtained. But there's another catch too, and this is where you need to take a look or take a peek at the manual. Not only does terrain affect movement op points out of all of it, but it turns out that weather also impacts or affects the movement points. So what ends up happening in a heavy rain, there's 2 additional movement points that actually have to occur. So if you're going from a clear zone to a mountain in heavy rain, then you're looking at 5 additional op points cost. So that means the hex that would have started off with 9 to go to the next hex that's off rail per se is going to cost you 5 up points. So that would mean that the supply level of the hex next to it, if it's a mountain and it's heavy rain, will be at supply level 4. So keep that in mind. All this information can be found inside the manual if you want to read the manual and get into the specifics. But as I mentioned before, this is all done for you. So all I really need to do in the game, and this is what's wonderful about this game, if I want to know the supply level of any hex, all I have to do is click on the supply button, and automatically those values all appear for me. And I just need to understand from a point of view of a tactician here that the importance of rail, because my values from a supply source don't drop and they start off with 9. And as you can see, the bigger the number, the better in the long run when it comes to effectiveness. And I'll show you that also. So I'm just going to get rid of this now, and I'm going to continue moving up here. So bear with me as I move my units here, creating a new front line, going as far as I can. I'm very happy that the Soviets have moved back, giving me so much free land. So I'm going to take advantage of the situation. I'm going to rush up here, not worried about anything. I'm not going to bring any headquarters up because I talk about headquarters in the port supply and how they impact the supply level of a hex. So I'm going to leave that for, I may bring up one. We'll see. But I'm just going to go forward here. It's really expanded, really shooting out, using the road hexes here, going as far as I can. And like I said, please bear with me here. I'm jumping on as many rail units as I can and trying to capture as much real estate as Russia wants to give me. And I'm just moving these forward here just to show this here. I'm gonna move this here, keep it on rail, save some oil. This will impact there. Okay, so the Soviets have moved really far back. I've shot way out, so just to kind of look at that, you've seen me expand the 9 operational points that I could as far as I could, basically taking that neutral zone here and capturing all of that land. And now I go to the next turn. And remember, I'm in hot seat mode, so please bear with me. I have to go through the Allied turn, but I'm not going to do anything in the Allied turn. And again, this video is about main supply source, and all this work is, all these calculations I'm going to show you today are done for you. So it's basically just this video is for understanding how the system itself works and so forth. So now it's the German turn. It's July 6, 1941, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, in my turn report, I've got a ton of units that were in supply no longer in supply. I have all these icons appear on the top right of my screen here, indicating the exact location of those particular units. And I'm thinking to myself, what happened? All I did was actually move forward. So I'm zooming in here. If I click on the right any one of these icons, what happens is I can see a whole bunch of units are completely out of supply. And I could check each one of them and going, what on earth is going on here? All I did was move my forces forward. So to see the actual supply and what happened to it, I'm going to click on the supply icon here, and all of a sudden I see here that all the rail has been damaged. And because of it, what ends up happening is they no longer have a value of 9. In fact, they're going down. I still have values, but none of them seem to have a value of 9 any longer. So what's happened here? Well, this is a damaged rail, and it turns out that Russia has what's called a Scorched Earth policy. So that means after they retreat, which they did here, so to speak, when I go to take their real estate, what they've done is made sure they've never left me anything that is useful. So they've destroyed all the railroad lines, so I would have to repair them and so forth. Now again, do I have to worry about that? No, because it's all done automatically for me here. So notice these are roads here, so I mean their supply still occurs here, but these supply lines are all damaged, and as a result, all of these units that are dark here where you don't see a light one are now completely out of supply. Now remember, when these units first started, their effectiveness was 100%. So here's a unit out of supply. When I go to click on it, if you notice, their effectiveness, and they're out of supply at this moment in time, their effectiveness went from 100 down to 81. So you can see being out of supply is really bad when it impacts effectiveness. I mean, I've talked about that in other videos. You also notice that it had to use one of its supply points. So soon this particular unit is going to start experiencing a lot more issues with regard to its effectiveness, its strength. It's unable to upgrade at this point in time because it's out of supply. And all I did was actually move forward. I didn't fight, I didn't do anything. But because the Russians have what's called a Scorched Earth policy, what happens is, and again just pulling out a bit, if I take a look at my main supply source, that's the lime green resource hexes, urban resource hexes, I can trace a line of supply all the way up here, all the way up here, and then the line is broken. It comes down here, but then the line is broken here. So what ends up happening is, because the lines are broken, my supply lines, the rail portions of it, the 9s, stop at these endpoints. That would mean now that trucks have to take over and deliver the supply from here on in. And that's why the values tend to change as they do. So you can see when I take a look at my last supply value here, what ends up happening is it cost a truck 1 op point to move in this location, 2 op points to move to the next hex, 2 op points to move here, and then it's used up all its op points to get to this spot in a turn. So that means a truck can't make it to this location, and this unit is now out of supply. And because it is out of supply, it is being impacted a great deal on its effectiveness out of all of it. Now, the exclamation point here is, again, we're dealing with port supply. I'm going to hold off that discussion here and basically until we do port supply in the next video. I just want to concentrate on main supply out of all of this. So what do? Well, one option is you can take your units and move them back. You can retreat a little bit, but I'm not in this particular situation, because what happens over time is these rail hexes actually repair. So I'm going to move forward, and we're going to see how many of these hexes actually repair. I want to pick a spot on the map, so let's pick a spot by Maglev, and here's the 7.4 unit here. Right now it's at 81%, so I want to keep this here. And let's see, was it in supply? Let's take a look. No, it was out of supply. These two units were, so this was out of supply, and this was out of supply, and so is this. So a lot of units are actually out of supply. So here I'm at Megalov. This is a 7.4 mech unit. Right now it is at 81%. So now I'm going to move to the next turn here. And again, like I said, bear with me please, because I have to go through an ally turn. I want to come back to this particular unit, and let's see what's happened for the next turn. And again, like I said, this video here is just for explaining things. All of this micromanagement that you're seeing here, one of the things I love about this game is it's all done for you. You don't have to do any of these calculations. It's automatically done for you. It's good to understand how it works because it may help you strategically come up with some plans. For example, the capture of railroads and especially urban centers and resources to increase your logistics. But here's the turn. Now we're at July 20th, 1941. And lo and behold, when you take a look here, and I don't know why that zoomed in, but lo and behold, now I only have 3 units that were out of supply. Before I had a ton of them, but now I seem to only have 3 that I need to worry about. So I can click on the no supply icons to find them exactly. Notice they also have a little square rectangle on them. So I have 2 units down here now. So what happened? Well, in the next turn, I'm going to click on the supply icon. You can see what has happened out of all of it is that the majority of rail has actually repaired. So again, when I'm looking at main supply, my main supply source from Berlin, what happens is I'm following my rail lines here. As I'm going through my rail lines, well, this one ends up stopping here out of all of it. I also have some port supply here. How about if I come down, so this will come down this direction here, it'll stop here, this will come down and will stop here, but this one will continue over here, it'll stop here. So you can see that this hex here can supply a bunch of units that are within its range out of all of them. That is when I'm dealing with trucks themselves. Coming down here, you can see as I'm following, and again, you don't have to do this. This is all done automatically for you. You can see that it turns out it still stops here, so there's still quite a bit of damage, but enough has repaired to be able to extend my lines. Again, I'd have to zoom in a bit, and I don't want to zoom in, but you can see how everything is expanding. Zooming in on the swamp area of Russia here, you can see that the road here, so here is my supply hex of 9 here, and because this is a road hex, what ends up happening is and also because I have a headquarters here, so it will impact it, but supply will move along the road to my actual hexes here. And you can see that now this unit here is in supply. Remember, this was one that I wanted to take a look at here. You can see it's gone up a little bit with supply, being in supply, and you can also see that now because it is within, and it's a 1 here, that the supply the unit supply level has gone back up to 3. Now the question becomes, and I want to concentrate on just these 2 units. So again, you can see here that where the rail lines are broken, and as turns progress, these rail lines that provide us with supply are slowly being repaired. I forgot the rate. I would have to look it up in the manual. I apologize. I thought it was 3 per turn, but it might be more. I don't know whether or not. This is beta version 9U17, so I'm not 100% sure. But so let's take a look at these 2 units here, and let's see where they stand. So if you recall, this unit here used to be at 81%. Now the effectiveness is 62. So this is 62%, this is 83% out of all of it. And I want to do a comparison here with a couple of these units just to show you how effectiveness increases, okay? So this unit here is at, and this is a hex source level, is at a source level of 5. This one is out of supply, and this has a source hex level of 1. Okay, so how will the source level of the hex affect the supply level, or sorry, the effectiveness of the unit? Let me say that again because I didn't say that properly. So how does the supply level of the hex itself affect or impact the effectiveness of a particular unit? Well, if you go back to the manual, I'm going to have to hit escape here. The way it impacts it, if you're dealing with a main supply source, so here's a main supply source here, so it's within supply here. There's actually a way of calculating it. It receives a base supply effectiveness increase of 6%. So there is the base here. So it's 6 plus. Then it's 2 times the supply level of the actual hex. So whatever that supply level is. And then you're going to add to it a headquarters bonus. You can't see it here, but that's actually 4%. If it's within 5 hexes of a headquarters, you're going to add 4 more percent. This part here is this part of your effective modifier recovery. So what ends up happening is whatever the current effectiveness is, so the unit we were looking at was 83%, if you recall. So 1 minus 83% would end up getting, because there is no headquarters there, it would be 6 plus 2 times 1, because that was the supply level of the hex. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 6 is 8. So this is going to have a value of 8. And if I'm looking at this, this is going to be 1 minus 0.83. And again, I just use this as an estimate here. How the game does its rounding and stuff, this is directly from the manual here. Again, not 100% sure, but when I take a look at this, this is close to 80 here. And again, I would do this from the point of view of estimates here. So I would go something to the point of 0.2 here. So 1 minus 0.8 would be 0.2. Take that and multiply it by 8, and you're going to end up getting something like 1.6. So I'm looking at an increase of about 2%. So if the original unit was at 83%, that would mean that in the next turn, I would figure that the unit would move up to 85% effectiveness or 86% effectiveness. I only estimate this in my mind. You can see I do a lot of rounding. Also, I don't know how the game handles decimals, if it truncates it or rounds it up. I can't, I don't know. This is all done under the hood. So as a result, I just use this for the point of view of estimating the values. So you can see here, this unit is not in supply. So again, we did calculation on this one. I'm figuring it's going to go up to 86% maybe effectiveness up here. 2 or 3 from my calculations. This definitely will not go up, because the reality of the situation is this unit is out of supply. Units out of supply, and it only has 1 left here, so that's actually really bad. This is down to 62%. I would assume that it will drop even further out of all of it. I noticed that when I go to the manual out of this, if there's no supply source here, that you're going to lose 1 supply level per turn. But there is no mention here, at least from the manual that I'm looking at here, of its effectiveness impact. So it will have an impact on effectiveness. This chart doesn't have it here, but you can see there's no recovery. That's a better way of putting it. That's what this table actually shows. I would have to pull up another table to see its impact of that it's losing operational points, that it's losing a certain amount of effectiveness. That again is within the manual, but you can see I'm talking in this video about recovery, so there is no recovery for this particular unit. Now when I look at this unit here is at 94%. Is there one that's a little bit less? I'm hoping that may have been just to show you. Nope, they're all good here. Well, doesn't matter. Okay, let's look at this unit here. So it's 1, 2, it's beside the one. It's at 93% right now. So if I use the formula that I'm looking at here, it's not near any headquarters. So it would get the base value of 6% plus 2 times. This turns out to be a 2 out of all of it. And I'm looking at 1 minus, and it looks like 93%. So I would just round it to 0.9 here. So this would be 0.1 times, well, it looks like 10. So if I had to guess, this is probably going to go up 1%. So When you're really low with effectiveness, it will shoot up a great deal. When you're high, you'll notice that the percentage, because of the 1 minus, your increase isn't going to be as much. So if I had to guess, I would say that this unit here is going to end up going up 1%. I'm going to take this unit. I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to move it back here so that this way it can recover. It's a 2 out of all of it now. Right now it's a 61%. Maybe you want to do the calculations for it to see whether or not you're right. But right now I'm going to take it from a point of view and say that it's 61% effectiveness right now. And I moved it to a level 2 hex, and it's not near any headquarters, so I'm not getting any headquarter bonuses out of all of this. And I'll talk about, like I said, headquarters when it comes to port supply. I just want to deal with main supply. So let's move to the next turn here. And again, just taking a look here. Actually, you know what? Let's do the calculations. I'll do them with you. So again, just estimating. 1 minus, it's 61. So I'd go 1 minus 0.6 times 6 plus 2 times 2, which is 10. So it's going to be 0.4 times 10. So I figure this is going to be approximately 64 to 66%. That's my guess out of this unit when it goes up. Again, bear with me as I go through the Allied turn. The Allies are not going to do anything. Moving forward to the next turn. More rail units will actually be repaired, extending once again my supply line. So you can see that now no units are out of supply. All my supply chain has recovered somewhat. So the example that you saw, that when I moved my German troops really forward there, is I really extended my supply lines. So again, looking at it from a main supply source here, so here's Berlin. You can see a lot of the rail lines have been repaired here. So I've got this point here, so this is where it terminates in this direction. Coming around here, it'll terminate here. But notice I have the line going up here also. And because it's going up here, it'll come down this way. It also extends this way, down, and so forth. So my main supply line has now extended further into the Russian territory here. And it took 2 turns to actually do it. Clicking out of this, sorry. I'm looking back at my mech unit here. You can see it's gone up to 85 out of all of this. This was the unit that was out of supply. It's gone up to 66 from my estimations here. And you see this has gone up 1 also based off of my estimations. So you can see, in just to kind of recap here, that these numbers are obtained basically off of supply trucks. Again, there's a headquarters here, so it's impacting it. So let me pick a different hex out of all of this. Okay, see if I can find one that I like. Okay, without a headquarters here, I'm gonna go down to this one. Okay, bear with me here, folks. Here. No headquarters around. Excellent. So here is my supply hex here. This here takes, again, when you're looking at all your supply sources, this is a main supply source, which is providing supplies to this hex. This is a supply level. Now, to move into this hex here, it's going to cost 3 op points, mech op points here, because of the terrain itself. The weather is still clear here. If the weather was, like I said, raining, or heavy rain in particular, that would add 2 more op points here. So that means what I'm getting is little trucks delivering, if any unit was here, and it would cost 3 op points to deliver supplies to those particular units. Same with this direction here. This is coming from a main supply source right here, to move into this hex will be 3 op points because it's a mountain. So what happens is the supply level for this particular hex, because the weather is clear, is 3 op points. Whereas a truck moving to this hex, it's only 1 op point. Notice here, a truck would leave from here to move to this hex, which is also 1 op point out of all of it. A truck would leave this hex to move to that hex, and again it would only cost 1 op point out of it. So this is all done under the hood. So if you're looking at this and this looks a little bit messed up here, like kind of like a scribbly line here, the game itself picks which is best for the delivery of trucks. This is all done under the hood. All you need to realize is this value here, the way the 7 is obtained, is that if a truck starts from this location or a truck starts from this location, it's going to take 2 op points to move here in clear weather. If the weather changes, this number will be different depending on the weather, because the trucks won't be able to move as far. It'll require more op points to actually move into that. And unfortunately, I'm in August 3rd, and the weather seems to be very clear all the time when that occurs. I would have to move forward quite a few turns to start getting some poor weather. Unfortunately, I'm getting good weather, so I can't do it. And if I move forward in the next turn, you'll see that even more rail units will repair. And what will end up happening is my logistics will extend to be able to supply all my units again and increase their effectiveness. And then I'll have the ability to actually move forward and attack. But you notice it took a couple turns to recover because I shot forward so far, and that would normally not happen within a game. I don't think an opponent would give me or give you that many or that much room or that much space. But you can see here again the logistics itself is repairing, and when we're looking at the main supply source here, and again I could start it from Berlin or Stettin, and as I come up, now it extends all the way over, all the way up, and so forth. So you can see here the importance of capturing rails. So strategically speaking, being able to capture the rail lines to extend my logistics, and remembering too, rail lines are going through urban centers out of all of it. So not only am I getting resources, I'm also getting the roads or railroads that basically supply travels along to be able to support my troops themselves. And again, every unit in this game requires supply. It requires it for the strength, effectiveness, and upgrade ability. And main supply sources are any urban resources with production of 10 or more, and any minor capital which has not been captured. The dead giveaway is the lime green color with the resource icon out of all of it. So that's basically main supply in a nutshell. In this video I tried to talk about the supply level of the hex, how it's actually calculated. I talked a little bit about how a broken rail line impacts the delivery of supplies. I also talked about how what happens is the values change based off of the motorized unit operational points to move into that hex, and the idea behind it, and it's in the manual if you read it, that what's happening are trucks are delivering the supplies to the units that are off of rail, and you're getting those supplies delivered automatically for you. Notice too, and I bring this point up, any unit that is off rail will use 1/3 oil, and that again is the trucks delivering the supplies to the units themselves. And as you can tell here, all my units are now within supply and seem to be increasing in effectiveness each turn, using the supply level of the hex to be able to do that calculation. And I emphasize again, This is just a video on the understanding of the mechanics of the game itself. All this work is done for you. Mr. Souza has done a fantastic job of taking away a lot of the micromanaging of this game, and he continues to do so with many of the upgraded features, two of them being the new naval ways of battle, sub hunters and naval pursuit. He's always finding ways of reducing the micromanaging, and this is just another aspect of the game where an understanding of what's happening is all you really need, but all the calculations are done for you, and I just showed you from what I've learned in the manual how those calculations are done. That's it. That was the idea behind this video. Hopefully it's helped you. You can see again strategically the importance of capturing rail lines in urban centers to not only increase resources but to extend your logistics so that you can supply your units so they can build strength and effectiveness and be able to upgrade as you play. If you shoot far forward, which on the rare occasion you're able to do if you shatter a line, you're going to find you've overextended your supply lines, and it may take a turn or two to get those units that are out of supply back into supply. So hopefully this has taken away a little bit of the shock of, oh, why are these units out of supply all of a sudden, and hopefully I've explained this to you properly. As always, folks, thank you very much for watching. I do this because I really enjoy this game. If you have any questions, feel free, or comments, feel free to place them on the comment section of the video. Questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you again for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Take care and stay safe.